If there's one aspect video games have evolved a ton, it's boss battles. 35 years ago, boss battles used to look like this. And now they look like this.
Woo! Yeah! Holy shit! Oh my god! What the hell? What the fuck was that?
Boss fights and final bosses specifically really make or break the game sometimes. If your final boss is a good one, it's a satisfying end to the experience. If you have a great final boss, it'll be a highlight of the entire game, and it's all people are going to talk about for weeks after the game comes out. And if you have a bad final boss, you're probably playing Fallout 3. Fallout 3 has a ton of different endings, but if you want the best ending, it's going to involve the main antagonist, Augustus Autumn. And for such an amazing adventure, full of scavenging this barren wasteland, helping the little people left alive, all for these 30 seconds of this? To say this is anticlimactic is an understatement. And if you want the best ending, the final boss, he just walks away. This isn't to say that this doesn't have meaning contextually, because it does, and it's a really great ending on paper, but as a final boss, this sucks. I am not a huge fan of the boss is pathetic and weak because it's contextually important. Demon's Souls is another game that went this route. Old King Gallant pretty much does nothing. And although it was really nice to have a boss fight that didn't take me 400 tries to beat, it still doesn't feel like a very satisfying ending. This can be done well though, just not as a final boss, like in Dark Souls 2. The entire game you learn about the king, and your entire quest for the most part is finding this king. It feels like they're building up to this really big showdown, like on the same wavelength as Gwyn from Dark Souls 1, and you finally get to him, and the entire atmosphere of this first reveal is all I think about when I think about Dark Souls 2. Those sad piano keys, the king limping around on the verge of death, barely carrying his sword in his hand. He's so insanely depressing and pathetic looking. But I think I love this fight so much more than the ending of Demon's Souls is because this isn't the final boss. Dark Souls 2 has a boss that's fit for an ending. Aldia, while certainly not the hardest fight in the Souls series, is challenging enough that it feels like a good send-off to this game. Final bosses are not everything though. Sometimes a game's best boss isn't even its final boss. The final fight with Xemnas is one of the best bosses in Kingdom Hearts 2. Teaming up with Riku for the first time in this super climactic fight with one of the best endings in the series is a fantastic send-off to this game. But god damn it if I don't love the Roxas fight so much more. Roxas is easily my favorite character in the Kingdom Hearts series and is the highlight of Kingdom Hearts 2 for me. The unorthodox opening of Kingdom Hearts 2 as we watch Roxas enjoy his final week of summer vacation with his friends and as it's slowly being torn away from him is heartbreaking. As it's revealed that he's the nobody of Sora and we start to realize we're going to lose this character, we start to actually feel something for him. And at first when you start the game you're wondering, why am I not playing as Sora? Who is this guy? By the end of it you're wishing it wouldn't end. But you can still kind of feel his presence throughout the game. When Sora's first leaving Twilight Town and he starts crying for seemingly no reason, or when the organization members call him Roxas, his spirit still lives on and it still feels like he's kinda there. And it all comes to a head in The World That Never Was in one of my favorite boss fights in gaming in general. When you're playing Kingdom Hearts 2 on critical mode, this feels like its boss fight at its fullest. It really feels like Roxas is trying to fight so hard for his life back. He's giving it everything, and it is a hard fight. The intensity of this fight, the music that plays during it, and the ending, it really doesn't get better than this for me. Not every single boss fight has to have this super deep, complex meaning on why it's a great boss fight. Metal Gear Solid is a great example of having great bosses by using its hardware. I'm sure you've heard this before, but Psycho Mantis reading your memory card, it never gets old. It's super cool as a concept, and it really makes sense for the character of Psycho Mantis. And in Metal Gear Solid 3, when you change the date a week ahead and you kill the end of old age and a whole new scene plays out, sure, this isn't really a fight, but it's one of the most creative uses I've ever seen out of hardware ever. Metal Gear was doing the Animal Crossing time travel glitch before Animal Crossing made it popular, and it deserves some praise for that. I feel like RPGs and story-based games have boss fights as easier because it's easier for the player to get involved. Like there's not really a reason we're killing Petey Piranha here, he's just chilling. It's still a fun fight though. Mario has had a major glow up in the boss department. His first boss fight was here. It's the same as the other 7 pretty much, maybe a little bit harder, but come on, this takes like 5 seconds. Mario 64 of course has the Bowser Showdown, and it's the same every 3 times, but come on, this is iconic. And now he's here. Mario has always been culpable for the Magic 3. 3 hits and the boss is over. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's definitely predictable. Mario Odyssey honestly had some really great fights, outside of these dorks. The major kingdom battles actually make really great use of their perspective capture abilities. The tank fight in New Donk City, Kookatil in this lava soup fight, they're really memorable and really creative for a platformer. But even as creative as they all highlight the major issue with all of these, and especially in their boss fights: difficulty. Difficulty in boss fights is like a spectrum. On this end, you have your Dark Souls bosses. You have your Ornstein and Smough. These are the hardest boss fights gaming has to offer, for better and for worse. And on the complete opposite side of the spectrum is your Anglerfish, your King Bob-omb, and the entirety of Kirby's Epic Yarn. Both of these absolutely have their places and are as equally as important as each other. There is no better feeling in the world than conquering a Dark Souls boss after attempt after attempt. But I'm not trying to feel like a victim every time I play a video game. Like, let's be honest, I don't think most people are playing Kirby's Epic Yarn for the challenge. But it's got a ton of amazing ideas, and it's got a beautiful art style, and it makes for a really fun, relaxing experience. But in the case of most games, they try to end up right here in the middle. Of course, this is the ideal area to land in, but most likely it's either going to be a little too hard or way too easy. And for most Nintendo games, you're gonna end up right here. I'm not expecting the hardest, most challenging fights of all time when I turn on a Mario game, so I'm super okay if they land right here most of the time. But when I play a Zelda game, I usually expect the fights to end up right about here, and sometimes they absolutely do not. I'm about to do a little bit of cherry picking, because for the most part, I think these games are beautifully balanced. Some Zelda games just have that one glaring boss fight that just stands out in the crowd as an ugly imprint, and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Like the Anglerfish. I'm not sure who playtested it, or if it was playtested at all, but this doesn't even feel like a boss fight. The Anglerfish just sits there, you mash on his forehead, and then the boss fight's over. He has 2 moves, they don't really do anything. This is a terrible way to end a dungeon this late in the game. It's just bizarre to me to a game as ambitious as Link's Awakening, with so many creative ideas, to also have the Anglerfish in it. King Dodongo takes a little bit more effort, but it feels just as easy. Ocarina of Time is the originator of developing a dungeon and a boss fight around its major item. But for most of the boss fights, they still give you some level of accessibility and creativity on how you want to take them out. But not King Dodongo. It's, you have to use a bomb, you hit him with the sword, he rolls around for a little bit, you throw another one, you hit him with the sword, the boss is over. Yeah, it's an early game boss in the first 3D Zelda game of all time, but I don't care. It's still not a very creative or good boss fight at that. DLC and optional bosses usually nail the difficulty curve. They're able to design the boss around your entire kit rather than just part of it, and they usually do a great job of this. Kingdom Hearts 3, 2, and 1 all have a fantastic example of this. Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind, the DLC fight with Yozora, is easily the best designed fight in that entire game. Lots of people complain that Kingdom Hearts is a mashy game, and to a certain extent it is, but it certainly is not in this fight. You have to have on-point reactions to a lot of the things in his kit, and he's very cinematic. This fight alone is worth the $30 price tag. Kingdom Hearts 2.5 Final Mix has the fight with the Lingering Will, and this honestly feels like a Dark Souls boss in a Kingdom Hearts game. Outside of having one of the best boss themes in the entire series, he throws out these massive, insane hitboxes. He does this thing where he gets on his glider and he just goes everywhere. It feels like 90% of this fight is running away, praying you can heal before he actually kills you. At first, obviously, it's super frustrating and it feels unfair, but like most Dark Souls bosses, once you figure it out and you get good enough, there's no better feeling in the world than beating this boss. Which is not something I can say about this fight. The fight with the Ignatic Man, or Xemnas, in Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix is terrible. The way he moves and he throws out so many different options, he makes Sephiroth look like an easy fight. He is not playing by the same rules that everyone else in Kingdom Hearts 1 is, and this fight is more frustrating than fun. It feels like you have to cheese this boss, or you have to use summons to actually win. While the Lingering Will left me feeling like I accomplished something, this does the complete opposite, and I look forward to never doing this fight again. Every time I revisit Kingdom Hearts 1, I dodge this fight because it's that unfun. Boss fights are the best part of pretty much any game has to offer. For the most part, they really challenge you, and they do the best of making the most of your entire toolkit. It feels like they're only getting better by the year, but I swear to God, I better not see another anglerfish in my entire life.
And you don't seem to